자기들이 알베르 상가롱라들이 이나다다 거기 그보가 그런 포칸진실라서 보사마나 뭐또 나요래 들들이 단 잡을래들 담배처럼 지지 물론 니 요래 니 요나들 롱니가 돼 하고려고 골머니 그때 롱니가 하모로 소적을 대신해서나 그냥 레카시 뭐가 차고 요래 대외들이 오늘 자명 나서는데 continua 지람자 사자필졌다 지통하고 왔었는데 뭘 어떻게 다진 자명 무슨 자명 매철 패요래지 대개서 뭐 사자필 송말에베 소지 이동고 몽 소니니를 봐서서 아고서 소니 남이 저런 게 되면 이야 하고 그러면 저렇게 것을 나들이 말하리 반에 쓸 것 같아요 말이 지금 물론 세상에 대해서 등상 그런 탑쪽도 받아서 용어를 탐지 지금 물론 적으로 체계적으로 싸워 랑적으로 싸워도 되는 거예요. 니가 싸워 또 실리 탐지거든요. 담을 개받치 뭐 롱니가 개받탐지 내가리죠. 진짜로 때려 약간 소소만 소소라 가시리 습대요래 가들이 대기요래 가들 배동에 지모요래 뭐 시합치 정말 싸움 또 다른 내 같은데 이만 내 독도 제거요래 그럼 소녀가 시골에 들이다 탄 것이 요가래야 소인제와 진보요래 가을 우리 따따따 설리진 난 리제 내서도 하고 사나 들이 레레 잡는 사강 따버리 잡을 사강 탐지 리따버리 게임 주생 탐지 리따버리 차들이 난 세배대로 돼 게임을 제가 메소드를 따고 제와 바로 가와 나와셔 참아요래 대삼년이지 용화를弄다 그것이 이래야 되는데 난 이제 내서도 내가 더 대삼년이 힘대 가르게 차가도 너무 가르게 요걸 맡아 대화다 대외적으로 대발적으로 대화처럼 탑들이 동행 고가 탑대 수지도 고리 셀디 우리 대화고 우리 동행 고 말이 데르티는 들이다다 다시 상황하고서 오 라리 소득만 제가 나와 탐제 랑게 셈지도 오 셈나와들 랑 셈이 좀 말이든 저쪽 고토 말이 다시 내서 상황하고도 오 세 사강 기본들 남미 랑 저거도 좀 말이 대라 대양들이 미주고도 나지고 노도지 말이지 다 나오냐 나 노도 얘기했는데 말이 풍부 어디는 실행성이 주고도 삼 지마봉가 나기 풍부를 요도서 노도지요 말이지 노도지 뭐 나오냐 반들이 나오냐 반들 때오 나오냐 반들 미적 매일 나오냐 미적들이 요리 난 남갔다 그래야지 새벽에 남갔지 자타로 봐사 차처 두매옥롱 샘남까지 매주리 차타에서 사가 용왕아 타기요리 어때 창게도 그 노동조도 셀리스레를 때들이 용왕 공룡문을 때다비 따다다디 벌써 좀 걸려서 하장식을 다 치르게 시라버리 샤르다 하공을 레기데 대하공 오 달리데 셔들의 셈도 샤브도 셈도 거잘 로고도 내가 이 진이 그런 진만한 로고도 내가 대독토가 찍고 찍고 독대에서 들이 레좀 되던 레오데 설리들 레좀 되던 거래 오 저하고 저기까지 다 상태에서 다 치고래 샤스 대도도 정도에 들이 다 답이처럼 얘기하면서 야 송들래 들이 다다 루데면 맞들 루데 자 치시래 자다 지었던 게 코들 시작이오래 저통은 인정상게 갈 루데 속도를 근데 루데 집대에서 뭐래 루데 메르 누구요래 다 파티 남시들 잡도록 거 아니지 루베에서 속들다 이게 루데들이 바로 얘기들이 그래서 딱서 하고 그래 내가 이게 루데 다 루요바도 루메가 아니가 싶대 차고 또 센스 대 차고 요래 대하고 요래 들이다 당에 대 나비 싶대 시고요 저다 싶다 시요 말이 로나 치와래 옛날에 랍장이요 말고 가서 보사 이 곡들이 때 보지 얘기면 그래 기본으로 얘기는 차들 로콩 좋아하는데 내가 사자 비례대가 나 조금은 지요래지 런지들 라초 렌송래지 내가 용디 퀄리티요래지 나와 도만이 찔러가 라테 도와 망상한 나저 도만이 꼭지용이 나초래 소야 보네 도마치에 나초 요라 내가 라초 내지리 요리 라초베 치고 차던데 그렇게 봐 차요라 용디 설탕에 쭈리 요리 시락 요리 그냥 가서 수능한테 토요래 이 콩 다른 거잖아. 다른 콩 얘기 콩 차들. 그럼 나 로스 뭔가 얘기 거라. 이 콩들이 다시 비참을 페이를 콩을 어디로 잘 소소라다 다시 막실 쳐서 콩을 냠냠 같은 지동 냠냠 같은 양아대서 지금 보고서 다른 잡을는 게 내동사만 용을 다 근데 거기 라리타가 가든 것들이 내동사만 용을 돼 가든 지금 지동용은 냠냠지 봐야 나 냠냠도 했어요. 다 얘가 도움을 드니 다다다 제게 잘 너도 정말 팽이를 해야지.
So Campo has just before introduced you to the nature of the aggregates, the elements, and the sense sources. And so now in general in this world, there are two systems. There's the system of the spiritual system, like the system of the Dharma, and then the mundane, the worldly system. And it is important that we understand both of these systems. Because if we do not understand one system and we become biased toward just one system, then we will be blind to some activities in this world. In Tibet, there appeared three emanations of Manjushri in human form. These were the omniscient Longchen Rabcham, Sakya Pandita and Je Tsongkhapa. And Sakya Pandita, of those three, he said that if one is biased toward one side, one will be blinded. If one looks at both sides, one's mind will be clear. So it is important that we understand both systems, the spiritual system as well as the worldly system of the humans. It is very difficult for anyone to become just like Milarepa and just follow the Dharma path without the world at all. On the other hand, if we only focus on the world, it also leads to conflict. For example, nowadays there's a lot of war and conflict in the world, and that is because certain individuals only think about this life and only think about themselves. So it is important that we are able to look at everything from both sides, from all sides. So in this world, there are two systems, and it's important that we become very skillful and expert in both of these systems. And so now when we look around this world, there are some countries where people experience more peace and happiness, and then some other countries where there is constant suffering. And then the reason why there is a difference is due to different levels of wisdom that are applied when trying to govern a country. And so as a result, people experience happiness and suffering. And so it also shows that it's important that our focus should not just be one-sided, but we should not just focus on the worldly side, but also on the spiritual. And similarly, also the practice of yoga is really connected to both of these traditions. So on the one hand, is connected to the body. We understand the nature of the body when we practice yoga. And the body is of the same nature as the outer universe. So the outer universe, or our world, this planet, is just like a person's body, along with all its flowers and trees, the natural environment of this world. This entire planet is like a person's body. And then regarding the flowers and the trees, which then grow within this huge body, flower is like a human life. For example, first it is born, it arises, it grows, then it starts to grow old, it withers, and in the end it dies. So just like a person. And this movement, this growth happens as a result of wind energies and the elements moving. And so there are, as we said, some places where people experience more peace and happiness, and other places where there's constant suffering. In Buddhism, we make a prayer and we say, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So whatever we do, both systems are a method to create happiness and a method to abandon suffering. And that is what anyone wants to do. Everyone who has a mind wants to experience happiness and does not want to suffer. We all can understand that. And then in the 37 practices of the Bodhisattvas, it says, appearances are one's own mind. So this verse tells us that all the outer appearances are actually our own mind. So if we just say it like that, it's very difficult for anyone to understand. So how we can understand it is that, so you imagine this entire world, this planet, to be like a person's body. So the body of a person and the planet are one and the same by nature. We think that it's just me, I'm this solid, separate entity, but that actually does not exist. We don't exist as this separate, solid entity. This is also taught in the Heart Sutra. There is no such a solid thing. an entity, a being that exists separately. It is just what is solidified is our belief, this concept of an I that independently exists. So we cannot say it doesn't exist on the other hand, because there is something there. But what is there is like space. So we also can't say there is something substantially existing. So in any case, a person's body is composed of the 5 elements. The flesh and bones are the earth element. The blood, for example, is the water element. Body heat is the fire element. Breath is the wind element. And mind, consciousness, is the space element. And so this is how a person's body really is the microcosm of the entire outer universe, consisting of the 5 elements. And the constant growth and transformation in this world is due to the activity of wind energy, the movement of the elements. And so regarding the outer environment, science with great wisdom have actually recognized the significance, the importance of protecting the environment. The environment is just like a human's body, and it's connected to us. And also many scientists have recognized that it is just the body that dies, but the mind doesn't die. The mind actually continues on. For example, we can observe that when we go to sleep at night and we have a dream. The body lies there sleeping while the mind goes on, experiencing the dream state. And so for this reason, because the mind goes on, it is more important to pay attention to the workings of karma, cause and effect, than it is to cherish the body. Of course, we have to look after the body, but karma is most important, and within that, love and compassion are most important. That is what, in essence, what we need to hold on to. As we combine both systems, the mundane and the spiritual systems. So in our lifetime, as we are alive in bodies, our body is most dear to us. And the body is most dear to all beings. For example, the birds also consider their own body as most important. They go to drink water at the pond, but then when you come close, they fly away because they're afraid. And why are they afraid? It's because they want to protect their body. And so we naturally cherish our bodies, we protect our bodies. But then later, when we have died, when we have lost our body, suffering goes on. When the consciousness goes into the bardo, it is just like a bird's feather being blown by the wind. In the bardo, we do not have a physical body, we have a mental body. But whether we have a physical body or not, the consciousness wants to experience peace and happiness. And so that is why the mind is really most important, more important than the body. And so this is just how I would explain that. I'm not able to maybe explain that in great detail. I'm quite old, but I do not have much learning actually. And so maybe I've spent a lot of time in distraction and playing that I didn't really study. But instead we have someone here who is quite learned, and that's Khenpo, and he's really the teacher. He's much younger than I am, but he's the actual teacher. So there's this one saying also by Sakya Pandita, in a yak, first the ear grows and then the horns grow. So somehow this relates to the being younger and yet being more scholarly than somebody who is older like myself. And so the reason why he is such a great scholar is because of his great wisdom, his great learning, and diligence in learning. And so it's our great merit to have him here. And he is really, in a way, my teacher, even though I'm much older and I should really be his teacher. But he really became my teacher. And what he does, his learning really benefits sentient beings. So he's really someone you can ask him your questions. And so when it comes to learning, he's really excellent. When it comes to experience in life, maybe I have a little bit more of that. I have really experienced everything you can experience in this life, happiness and suffering alike. And especially due to the kindness of kind of barbarian views that I encountered in the past, I gained a lot of valuable experiences. And it's important to have experience in life, the experience of both happiness and also sadness. And so I'm one who perhaps has a little more experience. And what I'm speaking about is basically just sharing my own experiences.
Yoga yore, Zalung Yami yore, Sahaka Yami, they also got the Lucipolity in the nature that Luder, Yerisha, which look like a Shesma, Luder, that took a long, got to let you go, because of the sound, you say about Yore, sound the same day, same day in his hand, the same the Dama Zuna, there is long time, you move the data Dama Zuna, the Nata Meva, come no boy away, there are the Luge, what the little support the Tatake, Ragge, China, Longi, Chardo, three charcoal, three support the young, didn't so the young young so easy, so only die in this zone. Same time, my territory is Rizata. Better is it true? Tabi Chuluk Yago. Chuluk did the natural Yago and Coachlo, my Yago Marisa. Chuluk didn't double in the Chopama was on Buyore. Chuluk that young did it. Chopam is jet, Chuluk down was already. There is Zoom, I should say. Choose by a comedy, same lady, same color in email half was on it. Same with Tamad half on it. That same Napa Yasol. They thought of this heaven they look half or something. They tell that comes down, launching down, doesn't make a ship out of your son, Malari person. They looked all the Chibacon to me. Same when they looked at those same now, cut same name dogs and half or something. They really chat down to what Dodo is Toya or Marie. You dear thing is in Charon Charlie. They chat that don't come at the pen. Louis don't want a thousand. I got that the she up the Lord, the young down. The young the young Caribbean, the young the young check the say, you know. Lago, Kajako, Kajalado. Dry people, you have to take it on the take the 7 dollars, did it 7 young do then goes to number of the my young people, body, a slapty boy, so they did you send the young to send it out, send the Thomas or the worry. Send Thomas or Taylor, did start to start the year taquari. Neck up lower about that down in the room or a daily. They madaba each eye on your day. Nay, a long time ship up picking some song. They do chat long nata, Shatan Shepherd nata, the book baking nata, long trip baking some modinate your Marie. This was 7 little half or something. This was just our name, Johnson. Chayum de, Tangum de, that the Gonja, Shelly, same color, I did the article, did neighbor tabla. There is said Dana Manaso, there is so dark, roar, Zalaso, Church Chayo Gurry. They Pachadi Yagura half or 7, the Pachadi part was at the Tata body, Louis the Hunter, the Tanzan, Madaba, Lulu, Seven Mambo Yore. These are people, but open by Yore penalty. Yeah, poor people, but they get so go to it. Go got it, go she did. Nobody got it, huh? nam sakin tin chaban na sa yong ni terti ti jeli na sa nga mo so ke be ki na sa kari shok che chok ni to le ti ma de wa yong go yo le le lu chu ti na to la ti ta je de ti sa sa mo so de shele de che go le ti de hu nu bu ro go ti de ta ta le zar de le dong pe pe yo le ti ge sem ge xin jiang lu ge sa lu ge xin jiang che ti lu yang ge xin jiang 독지 건데 심장배 로를 독을 걸로 심장 제거래 배대에다 달로 동들들이 갈비 짜탐지는 롱종들이 롱등양들이 감감하게 잡들이 속보데 나타녀와 가야 매바 대도 빌리 되는 다 루이드랑 조금 말이지 루이드는 다다데 닭밥이지도 닭밥을 제도 다 선범 차망 뭐 요래 저번 차도 속차리 다 포부 송도 사제게 포부지 다 저거 탐제래 다 타마트니 고조 탐제 줄라 다 속습지 뉴몽하면 차대서 보다지 다 차음에 배대다고 도 체제 진짜다디 르동도가 하참 팽기요래 내를 양도들이 르동도 싸가리 오 당을 샘대자도 나 리대자 서로 샘대자 정을 샘대자 정을들이 다 내가 가리나 다 대자 참 디다고 상모들은 디 죽고는 다다 무슨 실로가 다드시는 속차 차 방법 요나 됐을 라레스 자포로 얘들 리드 네 말이 배송요래 말이 배송데 기부터 성적도 저 저는데 라리 자베트 건 라티스 되게 뭐 요스 대마테 감성 시기 때문에 감성을 안 통이자에나 라티스 감성을 랑을 주고 되다 감성 조감도 감성도 좀있음 참아 찍바 찍자면 좀면 참아 샘 찍바래 대하고서 들이 derchik yobo de yore te derchik yobo chola roya me papen namko lo de seji jibare lo de kare pe je tama chogre piba pe je de no ba pa je de na te tam ji chogre pe je de pe tu tong de tam je to ta ka dang ge ja so do da sem ji ba de ja so do de o ta shap ja bo de shap ti ne te so ji yong kare de ko o te cha wo de dang mo de 다 대리하고 땅놈들은 마차 마당 더벅 매 되기를 개와 오송들이 소리 차당 매봐 땅놈 거 삼모다 탐지를 세워도 되는 삼모다나 디디들이 루마가 사와 탐지 개와 차음을 디체들이 루드 따다다 답을들이 적구나 답을들이는 줄이세다 담아서 마다버들이 답을들이 니요래 마다버들이 따다는 거를 소소데 레 줄이지 미니들이 가 다속차 제와라들 좀 차라도 미용을 미때문에 대답이 싸로 오 센트바리 지섬 아시세도 대화도 받으면 뭐 저바리 섬었다는 레주들이 하고 그래 또 센들고데 사지 또 이거 랑게 샘니 영선들 좀 샘들 세네 당시에 따다다 나와서 이렇게 샘들 세열 로를 도다 랑샘이 나와 실직발이서 하고는 딴 잡으면 가봐지야오나 로치발이 대하고 하니 이 하장 핀바치 뭐요리 내가 내록시디 내록도 봐디 시 내록도 랑 세부 내록랑 또 돌리니 마미 유라지 봐 마이 지리 잡도 요봐 마이 랑 세인데 랑시 상제에 먹고 마시디는 상제 은혜들랑 세인데 제는 상제 또 차공 차로 뭐더니 샘 코랑 사제에 뭐 하고는 들이 오 대상제에 탑도 상제에 송물 자롱도 쉬어 탑 상제에 송물 대다고 송모들 들이 소리 강량 매가 들이 샘도 쉬지 들이 잡도 뭐 샘을 안시 또서 땅아 샘 차로로 쉬는데 쇼고요 얘는 루마가 사와 탐지 가려서는 샘집하고 이제도는 로고 대 샘집하고 이제도는 들이 뒤로 다니고 요리 들이 또다 르그 개와제는 시그 루마 예수 개와제 르그 개와 따답다 참아 르그 실리 탐지 개와를 두고 요래 샘집하고 살로 서 탐지 개와를 두고 요래 개와대 수능은 때리 따라하는 거 무슨 잡고도 가면 되게 수능 문제를 때리 베르토로는 속작까지 하던 지보 니보 참이다 보자 속작까지 해서 세고 봐도 Koni sem chikpari le te salati ti rangdok chadore jumde ke chik sabar rangdok yinde tere tiri te nyamde tiri le tu te rangji ka hako gore te na rangji ka na de samte chedu tar dandi inde mebar to du rangji ki cha yungo yore te nerok chile tiri chubako me eso te ki chubo yore te mangda Mangda sono e
now the body is a microcosm of the outer universe, and so when we practice yoga, then that is actually connected to the esoteric Buddhist practices of the channels, winds and drops, the Vajrayana practices of secret mantra. Now, in terms of our body, when we practice practice the channels, winds and drops, it is a practice of the mind that is connected to the body. So it is taught in the secret mantra teachings that within the body, the seeds of the 3 kayas are complete. The channels of the body are the seeds of the nirmana kaya, the winds of the sambhoga kaya, and the subtle drops of the dharma kaya. So within our body are the seeds of the 3 kayas, but those seeds are actually mind. And mind primordially is the Buddha. We need to purify the mind to actualize that. First, we purify our wind energies, because the wind energies are connected to the afflictive emotions. And when these become purified, we will experience fewer illnesses and greater physical well-being. So that's really the purpose of practicing physical yogic exercises, according to the secret mantra, the Vajrayana. So it is because within the body we have channels, and within those channels are the wind energies, and these wind energies in the channels are connected to the blood flow in the body. So the blood, as it goes around in circles through our body. And it's due to the way the blood flows moved by the wind energies throughout our body, we experience physical well-being or we experience physical suffering. And so physical suffering, or generally a state of ill-being, arises when we become biased toward one side. And that really begins with dividing things into 2 sides. So first there is a belief in the existence of self and other as being separate. And because of this fixation in the mind becomes temporarily defiled. And even in the Dharma, in a religion, we can see this dualistic grasping manifest. For example, we might say that my religion is better than his religion, for example. And really, most wars in this world are really started in the name of religion. And so actually, this is a misunderstanding of any religion, because a religion, like the Dharma, is really about the mind, understanding the nature of the mind, understanding that there is no duality within the mind. When one understands that there is no duality, then the mind becomes clear, and one recognizes that the mind abides expansive like space. And this is what we call recognizing the nature of the mind. Longchen Rabjam, also Milarepa, and many great masters have said similar things, but in essence they said there is no higher learning than to realize the nature of mind. And that means to realize that mind is like space. There is no duality within the mind. And when there is no duality, then there is no basis for concepts of attachment and aversion. They cannot arise. And one recognizes that these concepts are only a temporary ice-like state. And so that is connected, that understanding is connected also to, for example, the chanting of mantra or the singing of spiritual songs. When we listen to such a song, we might not understand the meaning of each of these words, but each of these words carries a certain energy that generates an understanding within us. So we really follow the sound of the words and the beautiful melody, and the mind begins to connect with the words. And the mind becomes very clear as a result. And when the mind becomes clear, we may see the nature of the mind. This is why also it is that when we recite the mantra of a deity in the Vajrayana, it should be recited slowly and in a very beautiful melody, because then the mind becomes enchanted by the sound of the mantra. And so, again, coming back to the three kayas, the channels are the nirmana kaya. On the basis, fundamentally, the channels are pure. Only temporarily, we appear as an impure illusory body. There is a pure and there is an impure illusory body. And due to an impure illusory body, we experience physical illness. And there is basically three kinds of illness. The illness of the related to winds, bile, and phlegm. And these three types of illness relate to the three afflictive emotions. The illnesses related to the winds relate to attachment. The illnesses related to bile are related to hatred. And the illnesses related to phlegm are related to ignorance. And there is really no illness that cannot be categorized into one of those three. They all really are included in these three kinds of disease related to the three afflictive emotions. If one recognizes the nature of the mind, then these three kinds of disease will be uprooted because the afflictive emotions related to them are destroyed. And so to realize the nature of the mind, we engage in meditation practice. We practice, for example, shamatha, calm abiding, to achieve a state of mental equanimity or tranquility. And in such a state, we may recognize the inherently blissful nature of our own mind. And so normally, we place impure imprints into our mind. As we encounter sense objects of sound, smell, taste, touch, and so on, we place various imprints into our mind. And so in order to purify these habitual tendencies, these karmic imprints, we, for instance, engage in the chanting of mantra or in physical yogic exercises. And so within our impure illusory body is filled with many microorganisms, many little life forms. And as science says, there are beneficial and there are harmful microorganisms pervading our body. For example, just in our stomachs, there are very beneficial microorganisms that we want to have there. And then there are some who are very harmful. And the imbalance between beneficial and harmful occurs when we engage in anything in excess. For example, if you are eating too much oily food, greasy food, then there will be an imbalance and you will have a bile-related disease. Or if you eat too much sweet, you will get diabetes. And then there's also phlegm-related diseases. So anything in excess disturbs the natural balance of our bodies and leads to physical discomfort. So these beneficial bugs in our body, their nature is peace and happiness. And so when we train our bodies through physical exercise, we develop these beneficial microorganisms in our body. And then in relation to that, because the body is connected to the mind, as we are exercising our bodies, we are also have it. This also creates an effect on our mind. In a practice of Dzogchen, we train in the six. It's called we're training in the 6 realms of samsara. So we are in a way experiencing each of these 6 realms, and in this way, it literally says we become pliant, we become flexible or pliant through such a training. And the training is also physical. So through training the body in pliancy, we create a positive effect on the mind, because the body is connected to the mind. And so the channels actually are mind by nature. And so we have mentioned before, the channels are pervaded by the wind energies, and the wind energies also are pervaded by the clear, subtle, essential drops, which pervade our entire body. And so if we train in the channels, winds, and drops in a physical way, it also has a mental effect. On a physical level, we will experience fewer illnesses. On a physical level, as you mentioned, we have a pure and an impure illusory body. And it's not just us in this body. There are hundreds and thousands of different microorganisms pervading our body. And these microorganisms are sentient beings. And so that is really what makes up the skandhas. The skandha means an aggregate of many things coming together. And so if we practice in cultivating bodhicitta and eliminating the afflictive emotions, it will also have a natural effect on these microorganisms. And they will become beneficial microorganisms, pervading our body, leading to physical well-being. And so at the root of such physical training is really the mind. Mind and body are connected. So when we train the body in a yogic exercise, it has a naturally positive effect on the mind. And then whatever you do, whatever action you then engage in will lead to an experience of bliss or happiness. And then according to the Vajrayana, these millions of life forms pervading our body are actually the deity by nature. There's this song by Milarepa that was translated by Khenpo Tsultrim Gyaltso, and in there it says, within the boundless palace of or within the self-arisen boundless palace of the 3 realms of existence dwells Buddha nature, or dwells the royal seat of Buddha nature. So those 3 realms of existence are the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. And even though they are boundless, what this quote is saying is that at its center is Buddha nature. So their mind is all the same. Buddha nature always remains as it is, and it never becomes spoiled. It is just like space or like electricity. For example, electricity can be used for various things, beneficial things as well as harmful things. It just depends on what one uses electricity for. And as we mentioned yesterday, what really grants us protection is the refuge and the mind, the motivation of bodhicitta. It is really wisdom that protects us. And if we have wisdom, then we know how to make proper use of electricity, for example. So it can be used in two different ways. When it is used in a harmful way, it is used in a harmful way because of a dualistic grasping at self and other, because there is an attachment to one side and an aversion to the other. It is said that anything that we do with a mind that is unattached, without hatred and without ignorance, is virtuous. So whatever we do with such a, if your mind state is without the three afflictive emotions, whatever you do with body and speech will naturally become virtuous. So again, we have said there is two kinds of illusory body, the pure and the impure illusory body. The impure illusory body are all the different manifestations of sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. And they appear, some as large as a mountain and some like tiny mustard seeds. But their mind is one and the same. And therefore they all want to experience happiness and they do not want to suffer. When you understand karma, you will also understand this point. So because the mind is most important, the Buddha said, perfectly tame your own mind. And then if you actually understand how things really are, then we come back to this verse in the 37 practices. Appearances are one's own mind. The outer appearances of the 6 realms of samsara are actually not separate from one's own mind. So again, regarding the example of electricity, now if you have, let's say, 100 phones, 100 hand phones in this world, they are all powered by the same electricity. Even though there are 100 phones, they all are powered by the same one and the same electricity. So if you understand the mind in this way, it is really very beneficial. And so regarding to recognizing the nature of the mind, it is something that you have to resolve for yourself. You have to realize your own nature. When you realize the nature of the mind, this realization is not something that arises anew, it's nothing new in you, and it's nothing that you found anywhere else. But you need to recognize that your own mind is the Buddha, primordially. And it only temporarily has been put into an ice-like state. So what the Buddha taught is nothing else but a method to realize that, or it is a method to melt the ice block. If you understand that, then you will become free of any bias and your mind will be in a peaceful and happy state. You will melt your own ice block, and then whatever you do with body and with speech will become virtuous. And so that is because whatever we do with our bodies, for example, is done on the basis of the motivation of bodhicitta. That is why it becomes virtuous. And that is why whatever you do becomes an accumulation of merit. And also, this human body is the result of great merit that was created. Also, animals, for example, have different levels of merit. There are some animals who look very beautiful, they have beautiful voices, and people like to take care of them. And then there's other animals that people like to kill. And that is because of the different levels of merit. Even though the mind of all these animals is one and the same, it is just that their karmas are different. And so that is why we say karma, cause and effect is the natural manifestation of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. So if you think about it in this way, you will gain an understanding of karma. When you look at these animals, for example, you gain an understanding of karma. And so when you understand all of this, then a desire to eliminate self-grasping, and a desire to engage in meditation practice will arise within you, as a result of which you will realize the nature of your mind. So that is why this is a very important point.
tiêu không có gì thì lông đến là tiêu làm cho thấp thì không có gì thì
And so, one important point about whatever practice we engage in, whether we are physically training our bodies or we are practicing the channels, winds and drops, and so on, the essential instruction, the most important point is to understand the nature of the winds, the wind energies, and the nature of the mind. So regarding the key points of the wind energies, so it is said in the teachings that we should hold the wind energies at the navel center, because the navel center, the navel chakra, is the main seat of the wind energies. And actually, many scientists also in the world have accepted that, have seen that. The wind energies must abide in the navel chakra. Now, for example, when we engage in the practice of the channels, winds and drops, we are directing our awareness to the navel chakra. And so as we inhale through the left and the right channels and the wind is brought down into the navel chakra, when the wind is held there, then it may quickly enter into the central channel. So there have been great masters in this world who have practiced like various kinds of channels and winds practices. Various Khenpo Targye, for example, I was able to hold the winds for 500 kind of moments, which is like finger snaps. And during this time, when engaging in a sort of a martial arts, nothing could happen to him. So he was not injured in any way. And not being injured was a quality of being able to hold the wind energies, to retain the wind. So there's two kinds of wind. There's the stale air, which is our breath that moves through our mouth. And then there is the natural wind energies pervading our body. And so here we are speaking about those natural wind movements in our body. And these need to be retained. We are not speaking about the coarse winds, which is our breath. But when we engage in practice, mainly we need to focus our mind. So it is the mind that needs to abide. Therefore, it is the subtle holding of the wind energies, not of the coarse wind energies. And so one way of practicing this is that some are very devoted to the guru, some are devoted to the Yidam deity. The Hung syllable is the essence of the guru or the Yidam deity. So the practice is to meditate on the Hung syllable inside of a fire flame at your navel chakra. And this is also something I have a personal experience with. My father already taught me this when I was very young. And through the quality of being able to hold the wind energies at the navel, I was able to prevent any kind of injury that might have occurred. For example, I was falling down from a rooftop in a house, or I was falling down from a horseback, and nothing happened, no bones were broken. And that is a quality of being able to hold the wind energies. So what my father taught me is that the moment you encounter such a dangerous circumstance, immediately hold your wind energies. And so here we are also speaking about the holding of the gentle wind energies, which means to visualize the Hung syllable at the navel chakra. And then when you visualize the Hung at the navel, then the wind energies will enter into the central channel eventually. Also in the Vajrayana, it is said that the central channel is Vajrayogini and the Hung syllable is Chakra Samvara. Even though there might be thousands of different Yidam deities, their essence is the Hung syllable. The Hung syllable is the essence of all deities, enlightened body, speech, and mind. So therefore it is said that if one wishes to practice all the Buddhas after 3 times simultaneously, one should visualize the Hung syllable. And also when we, in certain practices, when we establish a protection sphere, we visualize all sentient beings in the form of a Hung syllable inside that protection sphere. So the Hung syllable is a very precious syllable. So again, you visualize the Hung inside of a fire flame at your navel chakra. And the navel chakra is also related to the generation of heat. So when the mind always abides at the navel chakra, then eventually heat will arise within your body. So that practice is also related to the practice of Tummo. So if you understand the nature of channels, you understand how the wind energy is everywhere. It pervades all your channels. A sign of that is that when your body is pricked at any point of your body, you will feel pain there. And so that is because all your channels are pervaded by wind energy, and wind energy is what moves the blood around. And that is the presence of blood at any point of your body generates a feeling, no matter where you prick your body. Which is also why a person who has died doesn't feel anything, because the blood stops flowing. Because there is no more blood flowing throughout the body, there is also no more feeling. So the blood, the wind energies, and the mind have a very strong connection to each other. And so it's important to understand this point about the wind energies. And so the wind energies pervade the entire body, but there is a key instruction is to concentrate wind energies at the navel. In this way, great energy is created. So you're enhancing the power, the strength of your wind energies that pervade your body. And so, for example, if one engages in like a martial arts or some kind of fighting, when one loses in such a fight, why does one lose? One loses really because of fear. When one is afraid, then fear is what causes the wind energies to go astray, to leave your navel chakra. Therefore, another significant instruction is to be fearless in this life, in future lives, and in the bardo. And again, a way to be fearless, or in other words, a way to not lose your wind energies from your navel chakra, is to focus your attention to the Hung at the navel chakra. One way of doing that also is to kind of feel the natural vibration that is present through the pulse of your body, of your blood, and to feel the Hung syllable pulsating at your navel, like Hung, 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 like along with the natural vibration that pervades your body. And in this way, your wind energies will remain focused in the navel chakra. And as a result, you will generate greater wind energy throughout your body. So focus single-pointedly on the Hung syllable inside of the fire flame at your navel chakra. And eventually the mind will be able to abide there. Another support for such abiding is to have your back completely straight, your spine completely straight. Of course, if you kind of lounge in your chair, it's very comfortable. But when you sit in a kind of bent position, then the wind energies will not be retained at the navel. Whereas when your back is straight, then the wind energies will go straight into the navel just naturally. So that's also actually again essential instruction when it comes to such practices, is to have your back completely straight. And so again, here I'm speaking really from my own experience. And many of my disciples also have gained an experience in that. Many disciples practice the Hung syllable inside of the fire flame at the navel. And so anyways, this is a method. The practice of the Hung syllable, visualizing the Hung syllable, is one method for having one's wind energies abide at the navel chakra. So again, we have 15 minutes for questions now. Okay, first question. The last few times I've met you, I've been very emotional, actually crying, and I thought they were happy tears. However, I seldom cry, and my question is, why do I cry like that?
Rinpoche tema khashe nga jar song Rinpoche jar song ra deni jabe gabla deni be chorba tamen ra ke song deni mikchu dang song deni yina mikchu di da gana da wachina be sam kibo ki mikchu ri yong yo ra sam tukpo mare sam yakpo ki mikchu ra namgyu yina nga khatu na ngobi me yina yang ti gabla takpa ngogo do ti khara yina gyomchen
ti haja yakbo kare nga 참말을 사바세비 요래 sabte 요래 문에 참말이야 뭐가로도 sabte 요래 sabte의 장을 이제는 sabte 요래 다 sabte가 토고들이 sabte들이 뭐지 용 가는 뭐지 이 라마트니 때는 뭐지 용 답에 팽거들 나디 많은 거를 때 하장 라마트니를 잡거들이 나가 라마야 뭐지 말이지 영향을 알창을 찍어치고 요래 제와도 팽이 요래 제와들 라마를 사족들 라마를 상거리 하자 야보리 저는 삼대 요바다래 나 삼대 초요래
Yeah, that's a great question. So the reason you cry in these moments might be because I really do have great love, really immeasurable love for everyone, even for those who don't like me. I love them. Often when we think of the Guru, we cry. And these are actually good tears, because these tears eliminate our self-grasping. But I'm not a great guru, but what I do have is I do have great love for everyone. And love is really what is beneficial. So really you should think of bodhicitta as the guru. So these tears, anyways, are a sign that you also have developed bodhicitta. Next question. Please describe the merits of helping the Dharma Center.
주토들이 당소는 유모바 쪽에 뒤집어를 바로도 서바 쪽에 가지고 저도 저기 다 소차라서 점마동 주변은 좋추고 이제 말이 저래들 쉽지 레좀데 하고 뭐 요래 잡도 노식이 요래 저래들 이 주토들은 그 너무 벤적 펀나요 오 이게 주토가 되게 기다 가래 들어 대템 거 요래 그래서 주토 내는 그래서 레지바 참마게 거서 이렇게 점마동 거 요래 생부사 조선비 제기요래 야 티들이 누가 추정 정보를 때렸더니 저봐 추정 줘봐 다들 될 가게만 보여래 네 강의에 같이만 타요 그것도 줘봐 거 보리 저봐 추정 줘봐 섬 창거요래 되게 토리 저봐라 뛰는 로주 추정을 뛰는 물이 줘봐라 뛰는 도도 뭐 동지바 체르마 진 제버들 제거서 섭지 사람들이 내가 그런 제버 제기요래 주도시 와도 그 주토요들이 사실 돈이 되게 성매들이 공파 망사 주바 망사들이 그 공파요 바탕 추매사 추매다사 동세들이 배우체에 성사지 돈이 되게 노동된 뭐 성발이 그 대외 주토다 심지 담지 인다고 맺다고 차를
But that's a great question. And so the purpose of a Dharma Center is to benefit sentient beings by helping them cultivate love. So it's all about cultivating love. And so at the Dharma Center, we transform the 6 afflictive emotions by practicing the 6 paramitas. Such as generosity and so forth. For example, if we just feed the animals, that is generosity. But the highest generosity is to give the Dharma. So through a Dharma Center, sentient beings can come to understand karma, cause and effect, or they receive the refuge vow and so forth. And if one, for example, only offers a single $1 to a Dharma Center, then whatever virtue this Dharma Center is created at this Dharma Center, that person will have connected to any virtue that is created here at this Dharma Center. And so here in this center, we have Christina and the different staff members and volunteers and so forth, and they all are practicing generosity by offering their physical labor. And with their minds, they cultivate bodhicitta. Also with their bodies, they practice ethical discipline. So they practice generosity, ethical discipline, and patience, especially patience, because it is not so easy to live here, especially for the volunteers. They practice a lot of patience. But then if we practice generosity, for instance, as a result, we will find wealth. If we practice ethical discipline, we will find a precious human body. And if we practice patience, we will find harmonious companions, a beautiful appearance, and a long life. And so all of this really is given to sentient beings who come here to this place, to this center. And the Buddha said in the Samadhi Raja Sutra that it is of a greater benefit to establish a monastery or a Dharma establishment in a place where the Dharma has not yet spread. That is more beneficial than to build a monastery in a place where the Dharma has already spread widely. And so therefore to establish a Dharma center in a place like this is extremely beneficial. And so a Dharma center really is like the heart and the eyes for sentient beings. And then how can we cultivate patience and increase our bodhicitta?
So Zuba Kandes Gomgoris, the Trangtus and Kandes Yaket Ongoris.
Zuba goes around the Pama, the Tobo, they have to down something. Something that could be Rasa Koro take something that lot of Yori. They have to something is something the Abu Sa, something the Koro Balloon, something the Tola dog might say. Did Seti Tapsi Salary, Chebi by something, something the double judge, Zuba Mina, the Amama could get up and go double Tola Rotary. They were almost me some of the million go. They were the David just took the something, they Tola Mandoa, Ramity, Flapper the Palma, Gigo, the Tangela, you know what that was the Lord, that Tangche, because the control of the lard or whatever. Kali, Kachi, Yaman, this is numbers. Oh, Malari Betty, Kawachi, Pamaji, Pama Gigo, Tangche, to the Lekachi with the Sunam, the half quarter, 30. Cause Kali, Kachi, until Gawa the Tuak, the Zumako, Tensu, the Flapper, the something is Zuba, double Jaway. They choose to look out to the Zuba travel, Mambo, Yorite, Don, something, something, Shetabijal Masora. 이 게다데 조바 게다 조바 지는 제 게다데 비제 게다데 상태에 제발 이 게다데 초라도 게다데 네 정말 상태 조바 지는 제 게다 뭐는 이 게다 네가 쳐버리대 뭐는 게다지 그 뭐만 하면 제서 그 lokwa는 돼요. 오 세비들 누가 체대요 게다데 뭐 게다데 그래 게다데 비제성 이런 쪽에서 조바데 조바다고 같은 메이데 세담다고 듣고 메이서 말을 배송들이 니데 말을 배서 뭐라 민송자와 세당이 소로 받다 조바고 송 뭐뭐 탐지는 독수리다 세당에 대다 조바고 대까지 제가 조바고는 이 세당 대들이 사소스를 열고 요래 독 매니저는 하자 독 쳐보요래 이거 뭐 제가 조바고서는 하자 배우 쳐보래
So regarding patience, our main objects of patience are those surrounding us, those individuals surrounding us. Our family, for example, our parents, our companions, our friends, our children, and so on. So there are those people that we actually love, but then often when they make trouble, we get angry at them. And then very quickly we may lose our love. So we must not allow that to happen. So by loving them, it's like we are accumulating love. And when we get angry at them, we are losing all of that love that we have accumulated. If you do not get angry at them, then you will not lose your love. And so a way to not get angry at them is to practice patience. So ideally, we practice immeasurable love for all sentient beings. And even if you possess great love for all sentient beings, if you do not have patience, you can lose all of that love in a moment. The virtue of having cultivated so much love can become lost. And if it is lost, then again we will have to experience the suffering of the lower realms. Love is the only cause of happiness, and we must by all means not allow to lose our love. So for example, you might feel that, for instance, you have to look after your elderly parents. And maybe that's very difficult. And after a year or so of doing that, you might feel like, oh, I'm just too tired. I just can't take it anymore, and so on. And so if you then lose your patience, you're losing the virtue you accumulated with great love. So the way not to lose your love is by practicing patience. And that means to practice an acceptance that endures any kind of difficulties, no matter what they are, just like Milarepa, for example. For example, it means to recognize the great merit of taking care of your elderly parents. And if you understand that, then no matter how difficult it gets, you will still look after them with great joy and delight. And so that is what we call patience. It is a patient endurance of difficulties that you endure with great joy and delight. So love must be protected by patience. And also it means to be patient in our Dharma practice. So there are basically 4 causes that lead to the destruction of our virtues that we have accumulated. And again, what we call virtue is love. For example, one way of losing our virtue is if we regret having practiced virtue. For example, you regret having loved someone, then you lose that virtue. Or you lose your virtue if you take pride in what you have done. For example, you think that I'm so great and I have such a great reputation. Then you lose your virtue. Or you lose your virtue if you fail to dedicate the virtue. And then the 4th way of losing your virtue is by performing a corrupt dedication prayer. For example, you want to use that virtue in order to harm sentient beings. That's corrupt. So these are 4 ways of losing your virtue, which essentially is love. Also, it is said that there is no greater evil than hatred, and there is no greater austerity than the practice of patience. And Milarepa also said that the root of the lower realms is hatred. Therefore, practice patience even at the cost of your life. The worst of all afflictive emotions is hatred, is anger. And it is especially when we get angry that we need to practice patience. And then this anger is actually transformed into bodhicitta. It is just like transforming poison into medicine. This kind of medicine that once was poison is actually much more powerful. So if you transform the afflictive emotion into patience or into bodhicitta, then it becomes even more beneficial. Then, please describe the signs of altruistic love and how we avoid delusion regarding it.
샴페인 기 제와요라 샴페인 기 제와 기 딱던서라 카레레스 베나 가시에 그런서 다 샴페인 삼기요라 이나 털버리 누나 샴페인 많이 벌어와 샴페인 삼기도라 이나 샴페인 말레스 그니 샴페인 기 제와 누나데 카레레스
예비가 지안은 셉지 탐지 피고서는 사바체베바레 옛날에다 나그 예비 이삼살때 그래요. 나그 예비에서 예비 맨날 나그 예비를 여러 때 yap어야 돼. 예비 상담한테 그 예비는 절도를 돼 yap어야 돼. 예비 이미 딱지만도 일 피고서도 로데 찍어야 돼. 네 감성 생기 사지 생기 니가 노릇적마도 요말 가리 대 상제리 대가리 대와다 대외 저다 대버지 대외 찍고 그때 이제 대외 저 상제리 대외 대들이 답고자고 짜치 보이고 자데 들 주바랑 니 공도리 하자케 저거 요래지.
So true altruistic love is when you want to benefit all sentient beings. And that is what we call immeasurable love. And so, however, if you when you ask about a delusion regarding it, if you think I have altruistic love, even if you actually don't, it's still okay, actually. So I guess meaning you fake it until you make it. So you keep thinking I have it, I have it, I have it. Even if you don't have it, you keep thinking I have it. Because eventually, by thinking I have it, I have altruism, it will transform into altruism. So it's good to think that way. So don't analyze too much. Is it real or is it not real altruistic love? Just think, I have altruism. I want to benefit everyone. So if there was one jewel that sentient beings and Buddhas could find, it is the jewel of love. Again, love is the only cause of happiness in samsara and nirvana. It's the only precious thing that we need to look after, that we need to cultivate. So, if you see the preciousness of love, from that actually patience will arise naturally. You have man for more? There's actually one more. I don't TikTok. It is said that Guru Rinpoche tamed demons in certain geographical locations. What was tamed exactly in these demons? Sentient beings or states of mind? And why do these demons adhere to a certain physical location?
이 로키나리 때는 송구여라 구루 림포체라 데니 란제 둘송라 데니 이나양 믹네 카셔여라 네 카셔기 란데라 데니 다트바니여라 란데 둘베 갑라 카레 둘송 라 코랑 란데라 데 코랑 둘송 야나 데기 셈 둘송 데니 사차 카실라 요사라와 양 카셔 요사마라와 좀진 가라이나 란데 카실라 요레 카실라 요마레 사차라
네 제시 랑 나도 좀 제일이 요 말이 되는 제들이 감대 시기 뭐라 그래 뭐들 내다 찾지 지는 길이 피는 담으라 요구요 맞아도 제일이 제라 대시기 뭐요 대시기 뭐나 내가 로를 지는 길이 랑게 먹게 왔지 뒤에 남는 데와 창 그리고도 내가 변해서 소마지나 오 소마지 초과쇼 그리고도 라고 되게죠 변해 세지 내가 저러는 제일이 요 말이 참아 대시기 뭐 참아 상제지 내 직자 요 말이 내가 길이 저러
이는 구로는 벌써 사차 카실라 제 돌송아 사차 카샤 양
그거는 뉴모바 마와 담지데 뉴모바데 파시잖아 내들 대시기 보여라 뉴모바데 똑바른 일이야 아고도 괜찮도 왜
이나 사차 기기셔라 사차 네 베나 펄라 데 카샤 요르바 이나 데 덴소 양 베나 아레라 요 마르바
제
란데 요르바 란데 카샤 펄라 요
말이 강라 요는 레시바 내가 로를 지게 내가 저를 지면이 베나 레그리스요 말이 대시기 보는 뉴모 막나 저기 저거는 독 막나 독녀로 빼지 말거든 레그리스요 말이 대시기 보요래 대외들은 제 매에 답든 거리지 내가 대라는 레니 봐서 뒤와게 너바당 배들 내리 차로 요래 그걸 보지 대사를 사적 세계에 잡고도 봐대요 의대시를 거도 저리 시와 잡고 이요래 저리 시와 잡고 이거 너는 거도 탈라는 거고 요래 샘디 대시기 못 싸만 저요면 뇌문이 싸와리 요 말이지 대대소네
알았어
So, first of all, there are no real demons, actually. Because what we call a demon is nothing but a momentary thought in our mind, in anyone's mind. And that mind essentially is Buddha nature. But sometimes due to past karmas and temporary conditions, the mind develops various thoughts, beneficial or harmful thoughts. So even though we call someone a demon, they actually also possess Buddha nature. And they really are not a demon. They just have a temporary negative thought in their mind. And with that negative thought, they engage in negative action, which leads to a certain result. For example, when two disciples are fighting with each other, and when they get angry at each other, then they become like a demon momentarily. But it's not like they're always a demon. It is just temporarily, while they're angry, they are a demon. And so all beings ultimately really are Buddhas, and there is no real demon that exists. So it is just an afflictive emotion that temporarily arises. And so then I was asking about the place, why in certain places. And so again, Rinpoche said there is no real demon, even in certain places. It is just, for example, if you have some water and you add some poison to the water, eventually there will be more poison than water, so it will become toxic water. So it's just an imbalance. There is too much of an afflictive emotion, and then one temporarily appears like a demon. But there is really no demon in the natural state of the mind at all. So again, only due to temporary karmas, one engages in harmful activity. And what Guru Rinpoche did is, when he encountered those beings who caused a lot of harm, he had great love for them, and with bodhicitta, he gave them the refuge vow, for instance. And then he established them in the path of liberation through sometimes peaceful and sometimes wrathful means. Basically, in order to help them purify their Buddha nature. But again, there are no demons.
Oh, Tatoka did the dandy the new mobile. They stick to what trouble really. Charlotte the J lady, Charlotte the Shuttle J over Taylor. Charlotte can J Landy Dammer and Young. They touch the leg.
The ultimate demon is self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. They obscure our Buddha nature. So we can say that the ice block is the demon. But when the ice block melts, there is no demon. Only temporarily, while there is an ice block, we see demons and gods and so forth. But there are no real demons. 다시 델렉.
모르잖아. 장롱 철에 모르자면 차도 모르지. 나 장롱 제일.
So how is the ice the demon? If you say like, oh, this ice is water, and then you still hit somebody on the head with it, then they will still bleed. There's no greater demon than self-grasping.
I have a few announcements for everyone. Some good news. There have been a few people that have requested to take the refuge vow with Garchen Rinpoche, and he actually doesn't give the refuge vow that often anymore. So he has agreed to do that, which is